Okay, here we have the new Chimera, and this is the prototype version here. And this is a Mechanaut. This is the Explorer, my very first sort of second generation Mechanaut, and he's about 6.25, 6.5 inches tall. So you can see relatively, they're in pretty good scale. And the Chimera is designed to work with the Mechanaut. It doesn't work very well with the second generation Predator, unfortunately, because the waist joint is sort of different. It does work with the arm and legs, so you can swap out those parts. But for the sort of combined Centaurish mode, it only works with this and the first generation Predators, like the Fang and the Terror and the original Commantus. So let's get this guy out of the way. He was just there for scale. So here's the prototype, and I was just working in general shades of gray so I could see the different forms. And in the background you can see some of my new color samples. So move him out of the way. And I did these three first in the computer. Actually, I did like 20 or 30 different color variations in the computer. And these were the three that I liked the most. So I made this guy, which kind of feels like an Arctic guy. I made this one, which feels maybe a little too Predator-ish because of the red. But there's some things going on here that I really liked with him. And since this is translucent, or as translucent as you can get with 3D printing, it would actually get a little more translucent with the acetone process. And it would look cool, but I know the red tends to run, so it might run down onto the white and ruin that. And like I said, it just looks a little too Predator-ish, but still like it. So this was my favorite out of those, and the tail would actually be silver, the horns would be silver, and you can see these ports that are on here. On here, they would actually be silver too, so that's why they're not on here, because I was thinking maybe I would acetone this, and then I'd have to paint them separately and glue them on. That's also the armor that goes on the tail here, you can see. That would also be white on this one, so it would sort of carry through the body line. But I didn't finish it on that. So this was my favorite. I really like that green. I don't have a lot of green and white stuff in my portfolio of Mechanauts, even though it's one of my favorite color combinations, green, white, and black or gray. But unfortunately, it doesn't work very well when you combine it with the other Mechanauts. So I actually had Vladimir the Badimir, Gordon from Instagram. He came by. He's sort of a local guy. And we played around with these a bit. And if you take these apart, you'll see that they combine. And the color combination just doesn't work. Right? It's like, yeah, it just doesn't work. The white's there, but that green just doesn't do it. And that was true of all of these others as well. And considering we have this guy who's sort of white and orange, we have the Defender who's yellow and orange. I mean, yellow and white, but it comes across as a little orange with some of the parts. Then we have the Dynamo who's sort of blue and green. We've got the Old Soldier who's army green and black. And then we have the Biologist who's sort of a translucent blue, which he might have worked with this one, but it just was too much contrast. You know, it just didn't really work out all that well. So I went back to the drawing board, and my wife and I looked at some color theory books, and we just tried a lot of different color combinations in the computer. And what I came up with was this sort of more neutral version here. And these are glow-in-the-dark, these light, smoky-looking parts. They're glow-in-the-dark translucent. So when they get acetone, they'll get a little more translucent, and hopefully it'll look pretty badass. We've got some canisters in here, and then the tail armor will be this translucent stuff. And also there will be the sort of neck part on here as well. And you can see on these others, it's loose, so that when you move the part around, it sort of organically moves to cover around the joints. I really had a lot of trouble sort of concealing that joint, so it shows through a little bit, but it's not too bad. I think with some proper angling, you can really get it to look good. So let's see what he looks like on here. That one's a little tight. There we go. So I think that looks a lot better than the other one. Get this out of his hand. And He's very agile, the Chimera is, so you can really get some super cool poses. And he has ball joints here, so you can get a really nice body line going on with that. You can have him rearing up. I think the joints are strong enough to support that. Yeah, so that's working out pretty well. One of the challenges with this is that if I print 5 of the same piece at one time, they're all going to be different tolerances, like slightly. So the one on the right might be really tight, and the one on the left might be really loose, and the ones in the middle would be just right. So usually for smaller joint parts, I have to print extra and discard some of them because they're too loose. If they're too tight, I can just kind of whittle them out with a knife, but if they're too loose, they're no good. So this is the Chimera so far. And I'll also put up some pictures of some of the other color combinations I considered since I took screenshots of them all. But why don't you leave a comment and let me know what you think. I'm pretty excited. I'm going to premiere this in a couple of weeks at 5 Points Fest in Brooklyn. It's in Greenpoint, I believe, at the Brooklyn Expo Center. And this is the 3rd 5 Points Fest. I've been to all of them. And it's the only big show I'm doing this year. I will be at one other show that hasn't been announced quite yet. But this is the only big one like in the city that I'll be. So I'm not doing DesignerCon, unfortunately. A lot of reasons, and some of the reasons are financial, and some of the reasons were I just didn't care for the show last year with all the changes that they made. It's a very expensive trip, and I make a lot of money when I go there because there's a lot of people, but I also spent 3 months getting ready for it. So it's a big investment for me in many, many ways. So 5 Points Fest is what I'm doing this year, and I've got a lot of cool stuff. And this guy will be premiering. I'll have at least 5 of these because I've almost got them printed now. And it'll be all this colorway. And I honestly don't know if I'm going to do an online release of this or not. It depends on whether people like it or not, because the price point is going to be about $150. As you can see, he's a lot more material than just the standard Mechanaut. So he takes a really long time to print. And that's sort of what I base my cost on, is how long it takes to make. I think I counted 75 parts for him, which was actually less than I thought. I think that's almost as many as this guy has. But same number of appendages and glue-on parts, and then this guy has, the Explorer has all the accessories, which this doesn't really have. Well, that reminds me, though, one other thing is the tail, when it has the armor on, can function as a sword. I added a little extra blade-type stuff in there, so you've got that functionality. And then, of course, these horns, you can do whatever you want. I mean, that kind of reminds me of the second Conan movie. The bad guy came in, he had that big horn, and they had to rip it out to kill him. I cannot remember what that guy was called. I haven't seen that movie in 20 years. But that's what that reminds me of anyway. And I'm assuming that you can use it with all the other accessories, too, since it's just a 5mm. But the legs can come off. Let's give that a shot. This should be pretty funny. Yes. Oh. Ball socket in this for some reason printed a little loose, so that comes out. But it's solid normally. Yeah, there we go. So got yourself a nice little hybrid going on. And you could do that with the front legs, or you could mix and match parts around. Just kind of leave it like this. And that'll look a lot cooler once it has that collar on there. But you can do some crazy stuff. I like it. Anyway, let me know what you guys think. If you have ideas for other colors, I can consider them for the future. Or if you have a favorite or just some comments about the design, let me know. And hopefully I'll see you at 5 Points Fest real soon. Okay, take care.